Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Amex Stadium here on the South Coast. Norwich City haven't lost against Brighton, so probably best that we get the positive in nice and early. It's obviously a six-game losing streak for both sides. Norwich City haven't been beaten here, although maybe that was by luck rather than judgment. We'll get into the game in just a moment, but before we do, of course, I'm Connor Southwell. I'm not David Freezer, as you can see. Dave actually worked his last game with us today, so I wanted to start by paying tribute, as I'm sure all the viewers will as well, to him and his work on the video verdicts. He's someone that, since I came into this job, has helped me a lot and has done a wonderful job and served the Norwich City community very, very well. Sadly, not a classic for him to go out on, but nonetheless, as we said right at the top of this, Norwich City haven't lost this game of football, and that's an experience that a lot of Norwich City fans and we have had to experience as well. So yeah, of course, I'm sure you'll all be wishing Dave well. He starts his new role as Deputy News Editor of the EDP on Monday. He'll do a brilliant job, but I think the plan is that I'm going to take these over on a permanent basis. So hopefully you can live with that, and hopefully I can do this. I can do this justice. Obviously, following in the footsteps of Dave is going to be a tough act to follow, but we'll try our hardest. Thankfully for me, I've got a game with so much to talk about, right? So that should make it somewhat easier. 0-0 here against Brighton today. Let's look at the statistics though, because they probably paint a bigger picture in terms of Norwich City's performance. Brighton enjoyed 63% of possession. Norwich had 37. Brighton had 31 shots, but only managed 4 on target. Norwich City had 6 shots, didn't manage to get a shot on target at all. If you narrow that down even further into the expected goals, Brighton had an expected goals rate of 2.70, so and that's compared to Norwich City's 0.61. So that really does illustrate probably Brighton's dominance, and the fact that a lot of people who were sitting in this home end that I'm currently stood in and around the stadium of a Brighton persuasion as well will be feeling that they should have left their stadium today with all 3 points. And they did have the chances, they did have the opportunities, and Norwich City will be counting their lucky stars that they weren't on the receiving end of a 7th consecutive defeat here today. The two key moments, really, the two big Brighton opportunities that they had, first and foremost, started in the 28th minute when a cross comes in, and Sam Byram, I mean, fair play to him. Norwich City have struggled with playing football this season. He opted to play a little bit of handball. His arms were right up in the air, and he manages to actually kind of scoop the cross away, clears the ball, and Simon Hooper left with absolutely no hesitation but to point to the spot. It was a really silly handball, really, and I tweeted at the time, I'm not sure what was worse, the handball, the penalty miss, or the general quality of the game, because it was really lacking. I'm not sure what the earliest that Match of the Day has picked the last game of, but I would imagine there would have been a few producers and a few presenters and a few pundits looking at this one, absolutely guaranteed that this is going to be last on Match of the Day, particularly given some of the other results that we've seen elsewhere. But as we said, Norwich City have quality has been an issue this season, and we'll come back onto that in just a second, because there were certainly patches of this game where Norwich City really lacked it. But equally, they haven't really had luck at different times, with injuries, with little breaks, with bounce of the ball. This was a little bit of luck, because Neil Maupay, with an opportunity to become Brighton's leading goal scorer here today, it looked nailed on, really, when he stepped up for this penalty. Completely blazed it over the bar. Tim Krul with his usual antics before that, so I'm sure he'll take some credit for that. And then the second real major opportunity they had, Tim Krul again pulled off a miraculous save, a corner whipped in the 55th minute in the second half. Welbeck manages to nod it on in the front post, and Veltman is there just to nod it goalwards, only for Tim Krul to produce a brilliant reaction save to palm the ball over the bar. But Brighton did create enough. They had enough territory, they had enough dominance, they had enough possession, they had enough chances to win this game. And I'm sure Graham Potter and the Brighton players and the Brighton fans will be looking at it and scratching their heads as to how they haven't won this game, particularly against a side like Norwich City, who have been so porous this season in terms of the way they leak goals. And even though they haven't lost this game, that's probably one of the few positives that Dean Smith will take from it, albeit a slightly bigger positive than they've had in recent weeks, because this was actually, when you look at the performance and you watch them play, this was a really concerning performance. And as I said, there were certain elements of it that you'll be pleased with. The defensive effort was very good. I mean, they actually defended their penalty box pretty well at times. I thought Grant Hanley was a colossus, to be frank, at the back. Gibson and Hanley looked a lot tighter. Sam Byram gave away the penalty, but overall, again, another solid performance. Yanulis, who everyone's asked questions of defensively, was solid as well. So the back four, I felt as a collective, didn't really do too much wrong. And maybe there's an argument to say that Norwich City's biggest issue lie within that midfield. They started with a diamond today, a lot of that enforced because obviously Josh Sargent missing with an injury. There's a a handful of other players out as well, but that's all Norman at the base, Billy Gilmore on the right of that, Pierre Lees-Malou on the left, and Kenny McLean at the base of it. It didn't work, and to be frank, they simply don't have the quality in that area of the pitch to compete at this level. And when you look at the deficiencies of the team, you can make a case that Tim Krul at this level is a very solid goalkeeper. You can make an argument that Grant Hanley is a Premier League defender, and I think they'd be probably interested in him this summer. But actually in that midfield is a lot of where Norwich City's issue is. They don't physically impose themselves. They don't offer any kind of attacking threat. They don't really protect the defence. And so you kind of get this situation where teams are able to build up quite nicely against them. And this comes back to my overall point, really, which is about game plans and about structures and about patterns of play. I mean, Dean Smith has been in this role now for 6 months, and Norwich City are tougher to beat, and that was showcased today, but they still do concede a high number of chances. That's the caveat to that. By the same token, they still have not taken any kind of step forwards from an offensive perspective. And I was sat watching that game, particularly in the first half, concerned because I was watching the team, and this has been the case all season, and it's why they're bottom of the Premier League. They can't press. They can't play through teams with real quality in the way that we saw Brighton unpick Norwich a few times and create opportunities. They can't do that. They really struggle, as a general rule of thumb, this game being one-off, but the general trend is they really struggle to absorb pressure to an extent where teams don't create high volumes of opportunities against them. And actually, at points you were watching it with Milo Rashica and Timu Pukki up front, both who are under 6 foot, and a lot of what Norwich City were trying to do was to get the ball into space for them to run onto. It was very basic, and that lack of creativity, which has been an issue all season, in fairness, and also I know there's a little bit of revisionism, but was also the case under Daniel Farke as well. They really cannot create. Oh, there you go. My tripod nearly went there. Managed to save it. They don't create the opportunities that they need to create in games to give themselves a shot of winning football matches. And ultimately, when you look at games, it comes down to what you do in either box, yes, but there has to be a structured plan. And in many ways, my frustration with this Norwich City team at the moment is that I don't really see a plan between either box, because they don't build up the play. And to be fair to Dean Smith, I don't necessarily think this is a coaching point either, because he can only do so much. He can only coach this Norwich City team so much. To be frank, I think you could have Pep Guardiola in that dugout at the moment, and Norwich City would still be struggling in terms of the way they play because the confidence is so short. And when that's the case, actually players do take safe options in possession. They do play with fear. They don't want possession of the football as much, and they struggle to impose themselves on fixtures. But equally, I'm at the stage where I'd much rather see Norwich City have a plan, but be bad at implementing that plan rather than what they're doing at the moment, which is not causing problems, not asking questions of their opponents, and actually being quite easy to play against in that regard. They didn't have a shot on target here today against the Brighton team, who haven't won in 6 matches, a crowd that was pretty nervy and was ready to turn, and I think everyone sensed that as well. The best chance they really had was when they broke in the second half. Gilmore did fantastically well to pick out Timu Pukki. He did even better to skip past Lewis Duncan and get to the byline. He hangs across up for Milo Rashica, and he completely mistimes his volley and fails to hit the target. It goes over the bar. But in terms of clear-cut opportunities, Norwich didn't have any. They didn't work Robert Sanchez in the Brighton goal, and there were really very few phases of play where they looked effective as an attacking unit. There was one moment in the first half where Pierre Lees-Malou received the ball in the penalty area and opted to go to the floor rather than have a shot. I haven't seen it back. I've seen some people suggest that maybe it was a penalty, and maybe Norwich had a penalty shout, but that really was it. And I'm not just talking attacks. I'm talking entries into the final third. I'm talking possession in really good areas of the pitch. Norwich City don't have it. They don't have it consistently, and that's largely down to quality. And there are a lot of people, I think, who are comparing this year's team to last year's team and arguing, is it better? And sometimes that argument can be based on the premise of Norwich City's team last year in the Championship was winning lots of games, so it's automatically perceived to be better. It's kind of the optics. But actually, I think when you nail down individually and collectively, it's a real struggle to picture this Norwich City team being in a position where they can score Premier League goals consistently without a defensive error, a mistake, or a real moment of madness or quality from somewhere. They don't have the quality. And actually, I spoke about the midfield, I touched upon it, but there were, in the first half in particular, there was a lot of bad decision making in terms of in possession, but also out of possession as well. And if you're going to play a diamond, your midfield has to be cohesive. It has to work as a unit. It has to press collectively. And actually, Norwich really struggled with that, and they struggled with the height of Brighton's wing backs, and they didn't really have a plan on how to counteract that. And it was only really when Dean Smith switched to a 4-3-3 and they had Johnny Rowe and Milo Rashica on either wing. It was later Christos Solis, and they actually pinned those fullbacks in a little bit. It was only then that we saw Norwich City begin to have a little bit of control and look a little bit brighter. But at that point, it came a little bit too late, and it felt also that they were fairly content with the point and that they were willing to play for that point at that stage, which, given their predicament they're in and given the run that they've been on, is a little bit understandable. So I think that's the frustration with Norwich fans at the moment. It's and to be fair to Dean Smith, he said he wanted players to show a little bit of heart. They did defensively, but by the same token, if they lose this game 1-0, I still think the frustrations that fans have been feeling in recent weeks still persist. So I'm not sure he'll be too pleased in terms of that element. And by the same token, the absence of a plan, I think, is creating this void where Norwich City fans can't really connect. They can't really relate. They can't really understand what this team is trying to do and what it's trying to, and the processes that it's trying to get to in order to win football matches in the Premier League, because it's not there. And again, that works in tandem with confidence and quality. Because Norwich City don't have any of the latter, the game plan is pretty invisible. And one thing is for sure, if they play like this in the remaining 8 games now, they will lose 8 times, I would suspect. So it's a really difficult predicament because they don't have the options really to change it. You look, certainly from an attacking perspective, there are 4 academy graduates on the bench today. Abu Kamara, Tony Springett, Christos Solis, Kieran Dow were the attacking options. None of those really have played a huge amount of Premier League football this season. No Josh Sargent, of course, he was missing today. Adam Eder as well. And if you can't ask teams questions and you can't pose a threat on the break, Norwich City don't particularly counter very well when they do get opportunities to break. Then really you're going to struggle to even get out of your own half, and that was the case a lot of the time in this game. But nonetheless, as I said, they rode their luck. Sometimes you have to do that when you're a team at the bottom of the table to get points. It probably does little for them, really, in terms of any kind of talk of a great escape, which I think many people will feel is fairly muted at the moment. But it's better than what we've had in the last 3 weeks, which is dwelling on a defeat and lots of people questioning lots of things. But ultimately, the performance did leave a lot to be desired, particularly for the 1,850 Norwich City fans who made their way to Brighton today, which was a fantastic effort. I'll end with my ratings then. I've given Tim Krul a 6. That key save for Veltman probably pushes him up. I thought his efforts and his saves did keep Norwich City in the game at times. Byram gets a 5. As I said, solid overall, but felt he was obviously the handball incident was pretty shocking. Grant Hanley I felt was, as I said, very good today. 7 for him. Gibson a 6. Unulis, Norman and McLean and Rashica all pick up 5s, and I've given Gilmore, Lees Malou and Pookie 4s, with Jonathan Rowe the only man who I could really mark off the bench getting a 6. And there was one moment in particular in the second half where he actually ran at a man, which seems absolutely bizarre to see someone in a Norwich City shirt doing that and trying to make something happen, because it hasn't happened all too often this season, and that got a massive roar from the away end as well. So plenty to ponder for Dean Smith, but I think all in all, when he reflects on it, when he sits down, I don't think he'll be too pleased with the performance, but the result does stop the rot, and it does mean that talk of kind of losses and inquests and post-mortems, for now at least, are put on hold. And of course, they have a massive game against Burnley at Carrow Road next weekend, which they are going to have to win if there are any chances of survival. And again, I think everyone feels that they're fairly remote at the moment. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I did an okay job. I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the game and your ratings as well. It's going to be a long week, I think, until we get to Burnley. Of course, that's next Sunday at 2 o'clock. We'll be there, of course, with all the match analysis and reaction as per usual. Pink and Plus app, check that out as well. Plenty of great content on there. We spoke to 2 of the 4 academy graduates who are on the bench today, so you can find out a little bit more about them as well. Only $1.99 a month, but you can get a free trial now if you get to subscribe. And that's about it. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evenings with the knowledge, of course, that Norwich City haven't been beaten, and we'll see you again very, very soon.